how do you hire right people?
Is someone who is really thirsty for feedback and wants to grow and has a figure it out sort of attitude. I'm always there I'm always there, but I will stand back and wait for them to I will assume that they can handle the task until they put their hand up and say, I need help. So I'm really looking for someone who's got that figure it out mindset.
So hey guys, thank you so much for joining in. Today we have Jamie with us, who heads and lead marketplaces team at DR Squatch. A very, very warm welcome to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Sonakshi. Good to be here.
Thank you so much, Jamie. So as our topic suggests, guys, we are going to conduct AMA session today with Jamie. We have tons of questions from each one of you. We'll cover them one by one. But before we do that, Jamie, in your own words, all of us would love to hear your story, how you started, how you ended up taking up this role, and also a little bit, few entices or things from your journey that you think would be very, very inspirational for all the women out here.
Yeah, happy to share. I started my career as a management consultant. I worked for a few years across banking and consumer goods and financial services. After a couple of years of working for clients, I got a bit tired of hearing that how was I supposed to tell a client how to manage the P&L when I hadn't managed a P&L myself? So I decided to move out of consulting into industry, and my first job was for a big e-commerce company in Cape Town called takealot.com. It's essentially like the Amazon of South Africa. Yeah. And I was a category manager there, and it was a perfect role for me because I got to manage a P&L, got to drive growth. It was super cool. And I've been in e-commerce ever since. I've worked for an Amazon aggregator, and yeah, I've been at DR Squatch for about 3.5 years. Firstly, I love being in e-commerce. I think it's so dynamic, so fun. You see immediate results, and I love being able to manage a P&L and just see results. I think some tidbits of what's really helped me along the way is taking an analytical approach to a problem and breaking down okay, well, if we want to grow 50% next year, what does that mean in terms of traffic, conversion rates, ad spend? So thinking in terms of levers and drivers. And I think that works really well in an e-commerce context because, anything you do upstream will have an effect downstream. So that's been super helpful for me.
Thanks a lot, Jamie. And, just a follow-up question on that, since you mentioned, managing whole P&L yourself, and you also mentioned taking up an yearly annual goal and then working backward towards it. When you had newly joined DR Squatch, how did it look like? Did it take you months or quarters to digest and understand, how processes work and then come up with a strategy? Or was it the other way around where you took up certain initiatives, did those, and then that's when you understood, okay, these are the things that works, and now I can do some backward math and understand how should I plan a strategy? How did it work for you?
That's a great question. It was a bit of both. But I will say that when I came on at DR Squatch, we were at a point in the history where Amazon had scaled really big, but there had never been a lot of focus on the channel. So when I came on back in 2021, I've worked with dozens of brands before on their marketplace strategies. It was very clear to me the framework that we needed to put in place. And so I think I'd formed a pretty clear picture within 2 months or so of me coming on in terms of what needs to be done. Of course, so we did roll out that strategy. We had the strategy in place, and we used that as our strategy for the new year, and that it did work really well. I think what I've learned is also that these things are iterative, right? So you have a strategy that lays out 5 or 6 initiatives for the year. You work through, you get into end of Q1 and already you've tackled 3 of them, and one of them turns out to be much more important. So you have to be a bit flexible. But I think what you develop over the course of a career is the ability to come in and quickly assess a problem and diagnose what strategy to put in place that works. So that's certainly been true in my career.
Absolutely, Jamie. And when you joined DR Squatch, you already had tons of experience managing marketplaces. So did you feel like similar playbooks work at different places, or little tweaking on the similar playbook works, or it was like a whole new playbook that you figured out at DR Squatch? How did it look like? And my second question on that is, after, figuring out a playbook, what was the most challenging thing that you realized? Was it around team building, getting talent, or anything else?
Yeah, I think what I've noticed is that there's a big difference between the type of playbook you'll put in place for an 8 or 9 figure brand
Yeah.
versus 6 or 7 figure brand. I used to manage some smaller 7 figure brands, and I like then your real task is brand building. It's getting traction. When I joined Dr. Squatch, we were already mid 8 figures on Amazon, and then it's a very different playbook. It's a lot more about channel defense. It's a lot more about defending your listings, defending your brand, taking this great brand that our team had created and synchronizing it over to Amazon versus starting from scratch and building the brand. So I mean, I've just noticed that it's a very different strategy for where you are in the different stages. But I would say that what I tend to learn in every role that I have is it all comes down to the team, and it all comes down to the people. As I've always been an operator in my career, and I've always been very hands on keys, but as you become more senior, I think you're reliant more on the team around you to execute. And whenever I'm in a new role, I think it always becomes obvious to me, because you bring a lot of baggage into a new role, right? You have your way of working, you have the culture from your previous company. And for example, in a lot of my previous companies, I was taught to be a pusher. Like, you push to get things done. You kind of a bit aggressive with the team, or I should say assertive with the team. This needs to get done, etc., etc., etc. When I came onto Dr. Squatch, I was, the culture here is totally different. So I had to learn that, that's not how we work here. We take a much more collaborative approach. And I'm sure, if I move on to a new company, I'm sure I will bring everything that I learned to Dr. Squatch, and I'll have to adjust that to the new culture. So that's what I've learned, is it's all about culture and people, and you have to be a bit flexible when you come on.
Got it. Got it. Makes a lot of sense, Jamie. And how was the stream structured? Because it was already a 8 figure brand on Amazon when you joined. So I'm pretty sure there must be an existing team that you took over when you joined Dr. Scott. So how the structure looked like when you joined, and how does it look like today?
For at Dr. Squatch, for those of you who know the brand, we grew to a very big size on D2C with our Shopify platform. And that's really how we generated our brand awareness. And we had a big D2C team that was built out, that drove the marketing engine, that drove the branding engine, that drove the brand, essentially, because that's where we came from. So when I joined, we were still at the point of being really big on DSC and being very nascent in other channels. And so the Amazon team was just myself and one person working under me. And the two of us basically did everything. We had some agencies on board. I do tend to favor having an agency, at least for ops, but also for ads. So we had people manage, and external agencies managing our ads and ops. But the two of us would set the strategy and decide what new SKUs we're going to launch, and manage the ad strategy and manage the spend, etc., etc. And then really work very cross-functionally with a team in terms of finance and ops and marketing and new launches and all that good stuff. I would say as Dr. Squatch has evolved, we've become a truly omni-channel brand. Our biggest channel now is retail, and we're growing very fast in retail. And so our general team structure across the business has changed a bit. For example, we've shifted brand into its own unique team, and they drive kind of the brand story and the brand strategy. So as opposed to having that more sit within the D2C team. And as a result, I think, I've kind of shifted it. How we've organized it is that I've shifted to be underneath we have a retail team and an e-commerce team, and I sit within the e-commerce team alongside our D2C team leaders. And I think that works really well, because I think you do have to be really synchronized between your online channels. You want to make sure you have a synchronized approach to having your presence online, for how customers are going to find you, how they're going to shop for you.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense, Jamie. Like at every stage, you need to figure out a different structure for your company,
Yeah.
essentially. And when you guys, started going heavy on retail, were there any kind of, differences? Let me give you an example. Like, did you guys have any story or changes on your marketplace set of business when you guys launched retail? For example, putting up QR codes in your any Amazon package to make your retail also powerful. Those were like kind of things you also guys figured out during the journey.
We've never used QR codes, but so that wasn't a particular issue for us. But I will say, like, two major things that shifted when we moved into retail. Firstly, was our retail prices were slightly below our other channel prices because Walmart tends to be at a lower price. On Amazon, we'd historically done something that very few brands do, which is priced at a premium on Amazon. And that was in order to protect our margins and to protect cannibalization from D2C. When we went into retail, like it became a lot more difficult to grow on Amazon with premium pricing versus Walmart. So we had to reassess that strategy. But I like we've also learned that being universally available, because we're now universally available in basically any Walmart across all the targets across the US. I think if once we made some shifts on pricing and got that right, we definitely saw that the channels support each other, and as your brand awareness grows nationally, it's much easier to grow on Amazon too. So I would say that like we've tried to reduce channel conflict as much as possible. That's been really important for us, is reducing channel conflict and figuring out how to grow our TAM in all of the markets that we play in, and just make Amazon work alongside all the other channels.
Got it, Jamie. And like you mentioned, there's one umbrella of e-commerce, and that's where D2C and marketplaces leaders are sitting together today at Dr. Squatch. How do you guys manage a discounting strategy? It's like common, or leaders coming in together and coming up with a strategy, or is it more of, like you get your piece of budget and that's how you leverage it for marketplaces?
You mean specifically for our discounting strategy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say like retail is a bit separate because they of course manage that with the retailers, but I can speak for the e-commerce team. We strategize very close, like I will strategize very closely with our D2C leaders and our head of e-com in terms of what our discounting approach is, when we're going to be running discounts, how deep we're going to be running discounts. We have to be very careful when we discount in terms of margin. It's, every company is thinking about how to be profitable. So we are very open to testing different approaches, but we do need to make sure it makes sense from a bottom line perspective. But yeah, I would say that we synchronize between the teams, and we work with our finance team to make sure that the margins make sense. And then we're like always willing to test things, for example, deeper discounts on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, see if those drive better sales, etc.
Got it, Jamie. And usually like how you guys at marketplaces, like whenever you run ads, for example, Amazon ads, do you see also impact on your D2C channels, like the traffic going up or brand awareness going up, or you keep PNL disconnected and you measure it differently?
That's a great question. I would say specifically, like what we've seen is that Amazon ads drive Amazon. They're very bottom of funnel. So if we're running Amazon ads, it doesn't really impact other channels. It tends to just impact Amazon. What we do know though is that our ads from other channels, like our direct response ads on Facebook or Meta, our linear TV ads, we know that those definitely drive not just Amazon, but all of our channels. So this has been a key question for us as we've evolved from a D2C only brand to be a truly omni-channel brand. for those of you who have been following Dr. Squatch, you may have remembered some of our old YouTube campaigns, some of our old, you may be targeted with some of our Facebook ads. We grew really big through advertising on Meta, and that had a big impact on Amazon. It was really a big driver for us to grow as big as we were and to drive a lot of branded search to Amazon. It's a few years later, it's the channel mix has changed, and we talk about it as a team. The brand team, the e-commerce team will discuss our marketing budgets for the year and what makes sense in terms of allocation to drive overall success as an omnichannel lens. But I would say it's something that's like for sure evolved over the course of my time at Dr. Squatch.
Makes sense, Jamie. And do you guys also measure the impact of selling, just say like a single unit on marketplaces? Do you guys sell single unit on marketplaces, and also versus selling multi-packs or bundles for Dr. Squatch?
Yeah, we historically, when we first launched, we sold single units on Amazon, but the margins just don't make sense. I mean, it's like the fulfillment costs are so expensive. It just your margins end up being half of what you could be selling with another bundle. So we shifted to a bundle only strategy on Amazon. It had almost no impact on our top line. To take singles off. We saw that customers shifted pretty successfully to bundles, and it was much more accretive to our margins. Overall, like the only thing I would call out is that, being Amazon, anyone can sell on Amazon. So there's a lot of sellers who are selling single units on Amazon today, even though we're not. So there is a bit of a brand dilutive effect of not being on those listings. However, the margin impact, the margin of selling single, like if you look for Dr. Squatch on Amazon, you'll see so many resellers, especially on singles. That's fine, but we know that our bundles like make the most sales, so we try to put our focus behind those.
Got it. And from a competition standpoint, Jamie, when you allow authorized resellers to sell Dr. Squatch again on Amazon, do you think your Amazon ad spends goes up, or you feel it doesn't matter?
Well, firstly, we don't authorize any sellers to sell on Amazon. So we are seeing essentially unauthorized illegal resellers. There's very little you can do about that. Because the one thing we've implemented that's been very successful, we used to have resellers on our bundles as well as our singles. And we rolled out transparency on our bundles, and it's been very successful for us in making sure we win the buy box on Amazon. I would say that like I think there is a small cannibalization effect from the singles, like especially when they get price matched to Walmart and it's cheaper than our per bra price on Amazon. I think it can be dilutive, but I don't think it impacts the amount of ad spend we need to spend per se, because we're still ranking very highly for all of our top branded terms, and in fact, like if anything, yeah. I mean, I don't think it has much of an influence on what we spend on Amazon or how we spend it.
Got it, Jamie. And how did TikTok Shop worked out for you guys? Is it as big as Amazon for you guys for Dr. Squatch?
We're not yet as big on TikTok Shop as we are on Amazon, but we are growing very fast. It's a channel we started testing out about 18 months ago. We started, very small, and then of course the channel itself evolved very quickly, and you now have brands who are doing 8 figures on TikTok Shop. We started testing a very like we shifted from using ads on TikTok Shop to using affiliates, which is I think how most people are using the platform now. That's been pretty successful for us. It's been a big learning curve to figure out like what works, what hooks work, what affiliate strategy works. But it's for sure one of the highlights and one of the key objectives for this year is to grow TikTok Shop for us.
Yeah, and like how do you guys figure out talent hiring when it comes to TikTok Shop, because it's such a new field, do you guys easily get people who could run it and do experiments as quickly as you would like, or it's a tough pain point for you to solve?
Do you mean in terms of getting team members in my team?
Yeah, yeah.
Truthfully, it's been a challenge. What I found, we have some great team members, but they have not been easy to come by. What I found is a really difficult trade-off, and uh, like one of the pain points for me hiring for my role is finding someone who has the analytical thinking, like I mentioned at the top of the call, who can think through levers and drivers, who can think through second order effects of our actions, and then so who has the right thinking mentality, but who also is comfortable with the platform. I find there are a lot of Amazon operators who truthfully you know, like don't, perhaps it's because I come from a consulting background, but like who, you know, the way that I think is in terms of like an analytical approach, and I find that it's quite difficult to find that mix of skill sets, an operator mindset with a strategist mindset too. So it's been a pain point, but luckily we do have a really good team in place. So it's it's just it took a while to get there.
Yeah. And how do you guys do it for TikTok Shop? Because from a platform standpoint, it's new. So finding anyone who knows about the platform in and out might be difficult. So how do you manage that?
We've had to take a very unique approach to TikTok Shop. Um, we have like our team structure for TikTok Shop is a bit unique. How it's working is I'm helping out in the merchandising aspect of it, and our growth team who drives our D2C growth is driving the actual like growth strategy for TikTok, and we're kind of synchronizing on that. So it's I mean it's essentially being driven by our growth team because it's all about affiliates, and we've really had to figure out what approach works there. We've tried out a couple of agencies, and I would say like my impression is that it's challenging, and I've heard this from other brands, it's challenging to find the right agency who's gonna push affiliates in the right way. We've also had to figure out our own internal resources because it's a full-time job managing affiliates. Like we've had to have someone be full-time on it. So yeah, it's been a big learning curve for us, and we're trying to move fast so that we can, you know, keep up with the pace that's happening on TikTok Shop.
Makes sense, Jamie. And since you have been in marketplaces for so many years now, and I'm pretty sure with every stage that you have crossed in your career, there must be different set of challenges. So for our audience, Jamie, if you can talk about those challenges and how did it change from stage to stage, and what is the biggest challenge that you're going through currently, being the lead of marketplaces at Dr. Scott?
Great question. When I first started out on marketplaces I was a category manager at a retailer. I think like I was thrown in at kind of management level, and a lot of people come at e-commerce by working their way up from a very junior operational position. I was kind of thrown into managing a P&L without having any prior experience managing a P&L. So my first my first challenges were just learning how marketplaces operate, and being, I would say, like, more importantly, starting to learn the dynamics and getting comfortable with, if I do this, then these three things will happen. That took a while to learn. It was probably a few years before I became competent in just like knowing if I do this, then these things are going to happen. As I like, I think the goal of that was just becoming a competent category owner, right? Like when I started, progressing in my career, I think it became a lot more obvious to me that, like, those are table stakes, right? Like being able to drive growth and operate are table stakes. What's really important is the influencing aspect of your job, being able to influence senior leaders, being able to influence the team around you, being able to negotiate well. And like, as someone who loves building Excel models and creating slide decks, like I can do that all day. I struggled with being nervous in front of those audiences, especially when presented to senior leadership. So it was a challenge for me to kind of gain some confidence there and learn that, like, as you progress, most of your job is actually influencing. I would say today, our challenge is, it's a mix of both of them. It's for sure influencing the team and working cross-functionally and deciding how to drive growth. Luckily, my team I have an absolutely amazing team at DR Squatch. I work alongside such smart people. So, you know, I think we're very effective at communicating cross-functionally. But I think now my challenge is kind of driving that change with my team and setting my team up for success and making sure that they know how to operate, because I'm less in the weeds than they are. So a lot of my job is spent just like helping empower my team to do what they do best, and coaching and sitting and thinking through problems and working through with them. So that's I think where my, like, what's shifted for me.
Got it, Jamie. And as a leader, Jamie, walk us through, do you always get that urge? Because, everyone start with an IC role and then they transform themselves to a leader. So, there's a transitionary phase where you always get an urge that, hey, this is something I can do better than, the person that I've hired. So maybe I should go get it done. There's that urge versus, no, I should take a seat back and, train them and let the things happen now. So how was that transition, and how do you control your urge during that phase? And like any tips around that as well for the audience would be really appreciated, Jane.
This is such a good question, and it's something that I have thought about a lot over the last few years, because truthfully, exactly as you said, like when you transition from IC and your job is get things done no matter what, and then you transition up to management and you're now responsible for other people who have to get things done, there, like, I definitely found it was very difficult to let go of control of the tasks. And also, I think there's an interesting dynamic where, like, you want your team to succeed, but you have to learn to be confident in your team. And part of that is spending more time training them, or like developing their thinking so that they can do the tasks themselves. And actually, like, it's a mindset shift that you have to get yourself to shift your time to being like less operational and more of a coach. It's still a challenge for me. I still have the urge to dive in and do, like, go head first in problems, and I often do. And I think you have to, like, retain some flexibility to do that, until I become like a very senior leader. I think I will always have to be pretty operational. But I think what's helped is truly having the right team around me. I mean, you can't fix like having the wrong person in the seat. If you've got the wrong person in the seats who's either doesn't have the right competencies or doesn't have the right attitude, it's going to be challenging. But once you get the right team in place, like, I think it actually naturally happens that like they want to grow, you want to grow them. So the conversation shifts from we need to get these 3 things done to, in order for you to succeed in your career, you need to own these processes. And that's what I've learned to do, is shift it from getting stuff done to how do I, like, just like how I developed is, in order for me to succeed in my career, I need to have ownership and excel at doing these tasks. So working on that with your team and like being able to help them develop their own career plan, I think has been what's the big shift for me.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, Jamie. And like you said, it totally depends on hiring right people. If that's sorted, then you can focus on building right processes. But now that brings me to my next question, which is, how do you hire right people? One way is, you of course evaluate skill set and see their past experiences. But the other part of it, which I feel is, plays 70% of the role, is, a culture fit. And how do you
Yeah.
understand, okay, this person is the right one for me? What are those top 3 traits that you look at?
I would say it also does depend on where, like, what level you're hiring for. So,
Yeah.
for example, if I'm hiring for a relatively junior team member, I think it's, to your point, it's all about culture fit and attitude. Is this person a fast learner? Do they want to grow and succeed? Are they going to come on and figure stuff out? Like, because likely they don't have all of the skills that they'll need to have in order to succeed in the role. So when you're hiring someone junior, it's really about, like, will this person figure things out and grow on their own? And I think, like, in my team in particular, and the type of person that I like to hire is someone who is, because it's like, that's how I am, is someone who is really thirsty for feedback and wants to grow and has a figure it out sort of attitude. I'm always there, but I will, like, stand back and wait for them to like, I will assume that they can handle the task until they put their hand up and say, I need help. So I'm really looking for someone who's got that, like, figure it out mindset. As you hire more senior people, I think the ability to demonstrate, if not the specific skills, like, for example, being able to manage Amazon, then certainly being able to demonstrate the underlying thinking, like, principles. If I lift conversion rate, then, what needs to happen to other factors in the account to drive traffic. Like, you don't necessarily need to have an e-commerce background to be able to do that. You just need to have those, like, logical thinking skills. And, like, I'm certainly looking for someone who's demonstrated ownership of processes. I think it's hard to find people who, like, in my world in particular, we're looking for a combination of people who are very operational but also very smart and strategic. And I found, like, when you're hiring, you seldom find, until you get to, like, director level, you seldom find someone who's good at operations and strategy and analytics and has a demonstrated history of ownership. So you have to kind of pick and choose what skills are going to be useful. And I would say, like, at the manager level, I'm looking for, like, someone who demonstrates the right thinking and competency and has demonstrated ownership. So I think it changes as you go up, but for sure, like, the common thread is having someone who has the right attitude. Firstly, like, do they want to grow? Do they want to figure things out? And secondly, like, as you move up, being able to demonstrate more of those, like, first principles thinking.
Yeah, makes sense, Jamie. And as a woman, like, throughout your career, did you face any challenges, or you felt that hit, that okay, I'm a woman and that's why it's different? Did you go through such circumstances in your career so far?
I have to be honest. I have truly never felt, and maybe I've blocked it out, or you know, maybe it's just the way that I look at things, but I don't doubt that other women feel this way, but I've truly never felt like I've been held back or in any way disadvantaged because of my gender. I I think I've been lucky to, I think it's probably lucky because of how I was raised. I was just raised to not think of myself really as a female, and therefore, like, I have these limitations on me, rather just as, like, a person who has, like, a lot, like, I was lucky to be raised in a family where I was raised with, like, you've got a lot of potential, doesn't really matter, like, you can do whatever you want. So I think, like, that mindset has made me think about things a bit differently. But I've also been lucky that I've been in some very high performing environments. And I think, like, if you find the right environment um, with the right people around you, it naturally becomes a meritocracy where, and this isn't necessarily true for all for all people in all environments. It's very unique, but like for example, at DR Squatch, when I joined, it was a very male dominated environment, and we've since hired a lot more females. But it never really I felt like it never really impacted me, because, like, we were all operating at a very high level, and it was kind of just about the results you deliver. So maybe I just didn't notice it, but I
Yeah.
personally haven't really felt like I've been like really, yeah,
In
disadvantage for
the
me.
end, it's about mindset, Jamie, and you might have not noticed it because it's your positive mindset towards how you look at things. So that really matters. I also believe in that. And Jamie, like last two questions from my side for you today is one piece of advice for those little girls who are just starting out and wanting to build their career in marketplaces.
I would say two pieces of advice is surround yourself, like spend time building out your network and surrounding yourself with people. You have to actively do it over the course of your career. It's not something that just happens. You have to spend time developing and nurturing a network. It's something that I still struggle with, but I try to do, as part of my work week, because really like having both peers around you in the same seat as you, but also seniors that can act as a mentor. And you don't need to have a formal mentor, but people that you can like look up to and ask for advice is really beneficial. The second piece of advice I'd have is, I say this often to more junior people who I speak to, is like who are looking for career advice, is to really drive your ownership muscle. Like, what if you want to move up in your career? What your boss is looking for is, can they trust you to get the job done? A boss loves, like, think about it, how, if any of you are managers, like, you would think about like, well, what do I like as a manager? I like knowing that someone can execute and I can just give them a task and they'll get it done and they're going to do it competently and they're going to do it accurately. Like, so like, and all that is about ownership, being able, like, really owning results and driving results. And if you can develop that competency early on, just be absolutely like, have extreme ownership across the board. You almost like, that's literally like the one thing you need to focus on, is just like, am I accountable for my results, and do I drive? Whether something goes wrong or right, like, do I own it? If you can do that, then like it's much easier to move up in your career.
Thanks for that, Jamie. And I agree to both of your advices, and especially the second one, like take ownership, because
Yeah,
that's what brings credibility to your career. So
yeah,
agreed.
exactly.
Last question, Jamie. One piece of advice to every woman in this community.
I would say, don't be afraid to be bold, and don't be afraid to own your results. I think at some point in your career, you need to develop like a personal brand, and like, as horrible as that sounds, you like, you've got to be known for something, right? And it'll bubble up out of the results that you drive and the type of work that you do, but you have to come with a perspective on things, and you have to be bold and say, this is my approach to things. And I would say, like, the earlier you can develop that, the earlier that you can develop your confidence in, especially if you're operating in male-dominated environments, the sooner you can develop a confident approach to things, and being able to have a spiky point of view, the sooner you will find a niche for yourself. And I think that that's what took me a long time, is feeling like I fit in, like I had a place in my career, and I feel like I've gotten there because I've developed this like wave approach. So yeah, being bold, taking an approach.
A tigress approach.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
exactly.
Amazing, JB. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for joining us in today. It was amazing, amazing chat, Jamie. I myself got to learn so much from you. So thank you so much for your time. And Jamie is already part of our community, Roaring Ladies of E-commerce. So she's available there. So if you guys have any follow-up question, do feel free to ping her there and take her help. Thank you so much, Jamie, for joining.
Thanks so much, Sonakshi. This was great.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye.